life today. It's a great day. Who couldn't love their life? It's amazing. Things are going great. Let's see what people are saying. Every day, walking with Christ. You're first up. Good morning, Bitcoin Maxis, and may God bless you all. Vivek 2024. Ben gives us a good morning, team. How can you not be bullish on life? I agree. It's one of the greatest days to be bullish. Quentin, hope you're doing well. Good morning, Bitcoin Graffiti with a beautiful cup of coffee. Ben, you can't, or you're missing the plot. You're missing the plot. David, Davos loser yelling. Morning breakup. Of course, we're going to be talking about it. Hard to believe. I remember every president from Eisenhower on. Never forgot the Friday Kennedy was killed. Was it a Friday? I guess it was, Thomas. And we're on. No, we're not a Friday, but it's kind of like a Friday because we got the holiday tomorrow. Great morning for a hot coffee. Did I forget my coffee again? 2 days in a row. How is it possible? Hold on. Let me get my coffee. How is that even possible? I don't understand. All right. I'm going to have to get my coffee. Unbelievably, I've never done it before. And somehow I did it twice in a row. We don't know. We don't know, Joseph. 1 second. Morning, Bitcoiners. How you doing, bud? Christine, good morning. I'm glad you're here. Matt Fry was doing CPR training last night and kept on the thing of another one bites the dust. CZ down, sun up. One board, it's coming. Hot coffee. WT count B. Huddle Maxis. We love it. Good morning, all. There you go. Oh, here we go. We got another shot at it here. I was doing CPR last night, and I kept on thinking of CZ. Another one bites the dust. Well, we're going to be talking about CZ today, but give me 1 second because I'm an idiot, and I got to go get my coffee. So we will acknowledge our sunrise in a second. 1 second. There, sorry to keep you waiting. It's a little gray, it's a little rainy, mixed weather, we got some snow, but sun's up and Bitcoin's running. So let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. There we go. All right, let's start with some fake news. We got some good fake news today. All right. I saw a lot of people sharing this, but this is an important thing to share. Okay, everyone, ready? The 3 ways to decenter whiteness in your workplace. Now, I'm hoping all of the melanin endowed people in the chat can let us know if these are good pieces of advice for the people with less melanin. All right. So let me tell you that white centering can be thought of as a system that prioritizes white dominant culture to the detriment of non-white groups and cultures. White centering, because I don't know what white centering is, right? I'm just here. White centering has been given many names, including the white gaze and the whiteness as the default. Because white centering is often unexamined and unchecked, equity and justice have continued to evade organizations. So here's what you can do if you center your whiteness too much, okay? You can be educated. Education, that works, right? Despite the best laid plans of corporate America, DEI efforts haven't been as successful as anticipated. Oh, no. Objectivity. So you can be educated and then you can be objective. Okay. What does objectivity mean in this context? Within workplace cultures, there are values, norms, and mores that employees quickly adapt to. These learned behaviors guide our understanding and influence our actions. How often do we stop to interrogate what is considered normal in our workplace? All right. So I guess this just means like don't have beliefs, maybe. I don't know. And finally, accountability. So if your whiteness is too centered, you can get educated, you can become objective, or you can be accountable. All right, assholes. Every employee should be responsible for the environment they are creating in the workplace. So if you're white, tone it down, okay? Regardless of an employee's perceived productivity or performance, if they are causing racial harm, but so whiteness centered is the gaze. So I guess if you're looking at people, but you got to keep it down. Okay, look the other way. So in the workplace, a primary way that whiteness is centered is through the acceptance of racist workplace behaviors. Many employees who have experienced racial harm have reported a lack of accountability for the perpetrators. That might be true. Cultivating systems to hold those who cause racial harm accountable can promote equity, prevent preferential treatment, and create a safer environment for all employees. So the person writing this is named, I can't pronounce her whole name, Janice Gassam Assar. Here's a little bit about her. She founded an award-winning DEI consultancy. So if you need this advice, guys, you can go to her and she'll tell you that you need to be educated, right? Remember when LeBron James says we was not educated, that Trump supporters was not educated, right? And I actually like LeBron James. I think he can come around, right? But I'm not sure about how I was not educated. So anyway, that's what we got, Janice. Thank you, Janice. We got more, though. We got more. We've got the vegan Thanksgiving recipes, everyone. You can get some vegan Thanksgiving recipes here. We have loads of delicious vegan Thanksgiving recipes, including side dishes. This is from the New York Times. Desserts and appetizers. Try these meat-free, dairy-free recipes for the holiday table. So keep that in mind, because there's another story out from the Daily Mail, and they say this: fascinating video inside a plant-based turkey factory that'll feed millions of veggie Americans this year is guaranteed to put you off your Thanksgiving meal. All right, now let's get into some Trump headlines, because they're great. We got some amazing Trump headlines today. All right, so let me get the first one, right? So this is from Joe Scarborough, Morning Joe, right? So this is what he said this morning. In a second term, Trump will imprison, he will execute whoever is allowed to imprison, execute, drive from the country. Just look at his past. It's not really hard to read. Okay, so look at his past. And it's not hard to read that he's going to go and execute everyone, because, I mean, don't you remember when he executed everyone last time? Don't you remember? Come on, guys. Think harder. Remember more. So this is great, too. This is, remember, our favorite podcast on the internet right now? It's called Prosecuting Donald Trump. It's on MSNBC. And so they're really confused, okay, because the state of Colorado wouldn't kick Trump off the ballot for his previous seditious behavior, right? So they're really confused about all this. So it was even a Democrat judge in Colorado who said, "Get the fuck out of here with this stuff," right? So they're bigly angry, okay? So here's Weissman and Mary McCord discussing a ruling out of Colorado that the 14th Amendment can't keep Trump off the ballot in the state. So the 14th Amendment, if you guys don't know, it's this thing where it came after the Civil War, and it said that anyone who was seditious can't be part of the government going forward. But I guess the president is excluded from that, according to this judge. So she threw it out and said he must be on the ballot, right? So their whole thing is like, my understanding is this was promulgated, this provision from the Civil War, so that if you committed rebellion, you can't participate. So now they're saying that the judgment is completely illogical because it takes the president out of it, right? They're not looking hard enough for the logic here, I don't think. All right, so but here's the funny thing, right? And it's our theme for the day, and it's something weird that happened to me yesterday in a sense too, because when Janet Yellen and Merrick Garland said they had this 3:00 announcement, I was like, it can't possibly be about Kraken. It's going to be something else, right? It's going to be the CZ thing or Binance that went on yesterday. But no, of course, it's Kraken. We got a bank license, but it didn't matter, right? You idiots. You got a bank license, but we know you got the bank. So I used to work for Kraken, if you didn't know, right? Kraken yesterday was, I guess, accused, charged. I'm not sure what happened exactly, but they got to pay some stupid new fine. We did talk about it yesterday. But the thing is that they were, I guess, selling securities that were unregistered or blah, 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 unregistered securities, broker, dealer, right? But remember, we have a banking license from a U.S. state. Now, the reason why it hasn't worked is because all of these people just haven't recognized it, right? So they're just like, no, you didn't get it. You didn't get you didn't get the permits, you didn't get the licenses. So yesterday I mentioned how Jesse Powell was saying, well, I guess these masochists want another beating in California, so let's give it to them. But what I saw, and what is, just a strange coincidence, and I think sets up 2024 perfectly, it's the following, right? So I've been saying for a long time that Bitcoiners were going to be hunted like Republicans were hunted around the January 6th time, right? I said it about a year ago. I said, we're going to be hunted, right? They're coming for us, right? They're coming. And it'll look something like this. So strangely now, when I just look at my own life, right, and myself, all of Trump's enemies, legal enemies, have found a way to find some strange vector to attack various participants in the industry, but they all directly affect me. So while it's hard to keep Trump's legal stuff in your mind, right? Like he's got the Georgia, he's got the New York, right? Well, all of these cast of characters now in the past 2 weeks have started litigation in things that relate to me. So somehow, I don't know how this happened, but I'm directly related to all of this stuff, right? So you got Letitia James, the AG in New York State. She's suing DCG, right? So that was like my original employer in this industry. Like I quit my job and went on my own for a little while, but I've been with DCG since exactly around the time that Barry bought it, right? Barry Silbert. So you get the New York AG running a case against them. Now, of all the people who could have announced this Kraken thing, it's Janet Yellen. Like, what was she doing there? So Janet Yellen and Merrick Garland get together and do the Kraken thing. So that was another place I worked. So as a shareholder, and so you're getting a biased point of view from me, right? So I'm a shareholder in these companies. These were things I did. These were companies I helped build, and now they're both in the crosshairs of the US federal government, right? So now the neat thing about this, and then I guess the Fed Reserve suing or the cease and desist against Bitcoin Magazine. So I got on my ass in a weird way. Like I'm not the direct litigant. I'm not in any of these documents. It's not my name getting sued, but these are all things that I'm just one step away from, right? So DCG, Kraken, and the Fed Reserve now with Bitcoin Magazine. So I got the Fed Reserve, I got the New York Attorney General, I got the American Attorney General, Merrick Garland, and the Secretary of the Treasury, all opening up legal cases against me, not directly, but the places I've worked, my client list, basically, right? So they're coming after all of us, right? And it's the same story that Trump has. Funny, but it's true, right? So here's the thing. The human mind is stuck on more or less the Hollywood or even the mythological storyline, right? The 3-act play. The 3-act play is a big deal in the sense that we have come to expect things to play out in real life in a 3-act play way. We've seen so many shows in our lives, so many movies, we've read so many books, and every one of these run on a 3-act play. Now, the reason I bring this up is because when you think of the world in terms of the simulation and the Elon's rule about the simulation, which is that the most entertaining outcome is the most likely, because the most entertaining outcome is the most likely, because we have this 3-act play sort of baked into our minds, that we use this 3-act play model to actually bend reality into those outcomes, right? Because we expect them, we continue to work towards them subconsciously, if you will. But the idea here being that, Trump, right? If you would think of Trump's life in a movie right now, right? If you would think of what's going on with him as a movie, right? He was this, and the 3-act play works like this, right? So you can think of it from Star Wars, or you can think of it from, any movie you've seen. But here's the basic 3-act play, right? Act 1, introduce the characters, right? So in the original Star Wars, it's like, here's Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia and Han Solo and Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi, and here's the characters. Act 1, right? The first movie is the first act. Empire Strikes Back would be the second act, right? What's the second act? You put the characters into the worst possible position they can be in, right? So first act, introduce the characters. Second act, put them in the worst possible position. And in the third act, they get out, right? They solved the problem. So that's the 3-act model, right? So what we see right now is Trump with everything around the election, right? The end of the second act would have been January 6th and all the misery. And then the second act continues through all of these legal cases and all of this stuff, right? Now, the third act would be that we find out the election was a scam, right? Now, I have no proof the election was, but that would be the third act. If you were watching a movie called the Donald Trump Becomes President of the United States story, the third act would be this, right? That this would happen. Now, it's the same with me, right? Now, in my case, I set out on this mission with Bitcoin 10 years ago, right? And then 10 years ago, coming from Canada, working in the Senate, I had a fancy job, I had a secretary, I had a fireplace in my office, right? I quit all of that because seeing what was going wrong with politics led me to believe there was no solving this problem with politics, right? That something was fundamentally broken. And that's how me and many people at that time got into Bitcoin, right? I've sort of done the archaeology before of the professional migration towards Bitcoin over time, right? The cryptographers were the first. I was part of that second generation of politically minded people. Like even though I worked in banking law, I did not understand Wall Street. I was not financially literate. I had none of those skills before, right? Just a lawyer or trained as a lawyer. So as the human capital started to peel out, people like myself said, well, as the mind can't heal the mind, politics will not cure politics. We need something radical, something totally different, right? So that's when I got into Bitcoin. So now I get into Bitcoin and I'm lucky enough that I end up getting involved with some of the most important companies in the whole industry, right? And did well, right? The last run, I didn't fuck around with leverage and Bitcoin. I didn't buy shit coins, none of that stuff. I just helped build some of the best companies in the space and I had something to show for it, right? Well, the government has taken all of that, right? It's gone. It's not worth anything anymore. DCG's finished. CoinDesk sold, right? They'll be fine. I think Kraken will be okay in the long run, but nevertheless, all I have left is Bitcoin. That's it. Like they've destroyed all my other stuff. Like it's gone, right? I don't even think about it. Now, I never did really think about it, right? It was not something that I was like, oh, my money, right? It wasn't Bitcoin. It wasn't liquid. It kept a footnote in my mind and I never considered it. But I never thought it would be stripped from me from the government, but it has been, right? Through lawfare and legal shenanigans and all of this stuff, right? Now, I've got a third act in this case, and I don't think I'm going to lose, right? My third act here is all I got left is the Bitcoin, but my thing that I set off on 10 years ago is now more important, more prescient, more over the target than ever before. The reason I got into Bitcoin 10 years ago was for the separation of money and state. I can't go backwards anymore. There's no going back for me, right? Like, what am I going to do? Can I have a job? I'm a terrorist in Canada, right? I'm getting sued by the Illuminati, or not really, but the t-shirts and everything in the Fed Reserve, right? The businesses are all getting attacked, right? So it looks like the story, just like Donald Trump, for some reason, my enemies have become the same as his, right? So the reason I bring all of this up is because it's what I've been predicting forever, that the worlds of MAGA, the world of Trump, the world of incredible change is running headlong into Bitcoin. And weirdly, everything happened yesterday on the same day again. The simulation is winking, and we are indeed entering the absolute third act for America in this whole struggle. Because weirdly, we are today at the 60th anniversary of Kennedy getting blown away, right? So that's 60 years ago today. Now, 60 years ago today was, and we arrive here, right? And we see what happened yesterday, right? With Kraken and Binance, right? So what happened exactly? Well, it was the KYC and the AML, right? Oh, you're not doing the police work. You're not getting information on your users. So fuck you. We're going to steal money, billions of dollars, and we're going to get you, right? And you had Janet Yellen coming out there yesterday saying, if you don't agree with the regime, you can't have access to American stuff, right? So now you get some people out there saying, oh, Binance broke the law. Even these Bitcoiners, right? Even these Bitcoiners. That's why in my book, you're going to see in the last chapter, which is going to come out today, guys, you're going to get the book today. In the last chapter, it is about Bitcoin NPCs, right? The self-righteousness is the main factor in Bitcoin NPCs. And all these people sitting there saying, fuck CZ, you know, fart face or whatever these other people are on Twitter saying, oh, fuck these fucking shitcoiners and all that stuff. But hold on, Bitcoiners, right? We got a problem here. Beautyon puts it perfectly, right? I don't know if you guys have seen Beautyon this morning, but here's what Beautyon wrote about all of this, right? And if you guys don't know who Beautyon is, whoops, I don't know what that is all about. 1 second. The book landing page is just my nolanbailey.com, but it'll be out. I got to finish this and load it up and all that stuff. And anyone who signed up for the thing, I'll just email it to you, so you don't have to come back and get it. So there'll be an email sent out later. So the whole thing has been on this KYC and everything, right? So here's what Beautyon says. He goes, the self-righteous anti-Binance, anti-Tether accounts on here may be right about those companies, which is true. They might be right? I don't know what was going on, right? Companies, but what they're not taking into account is the side effect of them winning against those services. They're generally young and have no understanding of what the word jurisdiction means. If the US manages to frighten off all the entrepreneurs, then those entrepreneurs will cut the USA off the list of countries they serve. This is already true of Swiss banks, online gambling sites, and many other services that do not want to find themselves screeched at by gerontocrats, socialist harpies, and Atlas shrugged munchkins. The rest of the world will allow entrepreneurs to experiment and fail, the market winnowing out the bad ideas until the few grains of excellence and perfect market fit remain, and America will have no part in it. CZ is Binance is down, we've won. Only someone who's incredibly stupid and naive thinks this is the end of the bad business models being unleashed. Do you not know about Taro and assets on the blockchain? Do you really think that no one on earth is going to leverage that new tool and others to do Binance 2.0? If you do, you're crazy. And make no mistake, Binance 2.0 is built on Taro, and he goes on and on and on, right, about this stuff. And he's right? The self-righteousness here about this stuff is stupid, because in the end, what did they do wrong over at Binance? Well, they did the KYC AML thing, right? And you get people like Jason Calaanis, who I like, right? I'm a fan of Jason Calaanis. But he says the following: at the end of the day, CZ Binance encouraged folks to break KYC and built this company around it, while knowing it would enable terrorists to covertly and quickly fund their operations. Most crypto folks I've met accept that covert funding of terrorism is the price you pay for economic activity, a belief that is incompatible with how Western societies have been architected. Indeed, it is incompatible, but that's kind of the point, right? And we're going to talk about that architecture. So Jason Calaanis, who spends many of his days on the All In podcast railing about media literacy, the censorship industrial complex, and all of that stuff, right? Without understanding that they are connected. And how are they connected, right? Well, this is what Jason Calaanis has to learn, right? So first of all, let me read what Marty Bent said to Jason Calaanis, and then I'll explain the history of it. KYC AML is an illicit activity. This is Marty Bent responding to Jason Calaanis about, Binance did the KYC thing and, the terrorism people, right? So here's what he says. KYC AML is an illicit activity. The governments making people safer are the biggest criminals in the world. Where's Epstein's list? Where's the Ukraine money gone? Which politicians are campaigning using FTX customer money this year? When will the Pentagon pass an audit, right? So, but where does all of this stuff come from, right? Where does the whole thing was built on KYC and AML? Where does it actually come from? Well, we know where it comes from, right? It comes from the death of John F. Kennedy. Right? If you don't know the history of KYCML, let me inform you, right? So go back to Robert Caro's 4-volume biography on Lyndon B. Johnson, right? So Lyndon B. Johnson was the vice president under Kennedy, became president the day Kennedy was assassinated, happened to be killed, Kennedy, in LBJ's hometown of Texas, right? Or home state of Texas. So it's a 4-book series, right? The Path to Power, Means of Ascent, Master of the Senate, and the Passage of Power, right? So these are the 4 Robert Caro books. Here's the thing about Lyndon B. Johnson, though, right? There's never been someone more corrupt in American politics than Lyndon B. Johnson, right? He is the most corrupt person there ever was, right? So this is what they say. When Johnson entered Congress, he was dirt poor and obsessed with money. He remained an elected federal official until his term as president ended in 1969, an unbroken string spanning more than 3 decades. This is all from Doomberg, by the way. I read this last year around now. An unbroken string spanning more than 3 decades, and yet managed to retire with a fortune that would be valued well in excess of $100 million today. His official explanation of how a public servant became so rich, he said it was his life, Ladybird, right? So Ladybird owned a radio station, and he said, well, she did real well, right? But he would joke, right? He would sort of laugh about it, right? So what separates Johnson's story from other tales of political venality is the vast impact of his legacy. The average U.S. citizen's trust in government peaked at 77% during Johnson's time as president and has drifted lower ever since, right? What would it be today with old Joe, right? He also uncorked an orgy of government spending, both in support of the war in Vietnam and in pursuit of his ambitious domestic agenda. Bigger government means bigger opportunities for grift, and Washington, D.C.'s insatiable bipartisan appetite for both was irreversibly accelerated by Johnson. Measured as a percentage of gross domestic product, U.S. federal government spending has nearly doubled since the 60s. Normalization of behavior like Johnson's has led to a continued debasement of U.S. politics to the point where scandals that would have been previously ended careers are now routinely blown off as a standard operating procedure, right? There is the alphabetical order one too. Yeah, I have that here. Yeah, amazingly, those last 202 votes were cast in alphabetical order. Yeah, that's why they call them landslide Lyndon, right? Landslide Lyndon. But here's the thing, right? So this comes from, and he's sort of describing what happened at that time in 1964, when most of the stuff after the Kennedy assassination begins, right? And here's what he's quoting Ben Hunt, Epsilon Theory on Twitter here, right? So here's the thing. He goes, that's really all it is. That's really all it is. That's what anti-money laundering AML regulations are all about. That's what know your client KYC regulations are all about. That's what report on foreign bank and financial accounts FBAR regulations are all about. That's what the Treasury-led Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunications, SWIFT, is all about. That's what the Bank Secrecy Act is all about. None of these programs are really about taxes. None of these programs are really about catching crooks or fighting terrorists. All of these programs are really about information for information's sake regarding the greatest source of power in the world and the raison d'etre of every government on earth: money. Buried in the noise and drama surrounding the ongoing collapse of the crypto side, this is last year, are disturbing developments in tangentially related technologies that look to snuff out the last vestiges of individual privacy. Central bank digital currencies are coming, right? So here's the thing, guys, right? There is no more turning back, right? We are entering the actual storyline that began after Kennedy was assassinated 60 years ago today. 60 years ago today started a situation where 1964 was not 1964. 1964 is the beginning of 1984. So we haven't ended 1984 since 1964. It's been with us for 60 years. But this is the third act situation, right? We are now in this third act situation. And amazingly, over the last year, ever since we started talking about this 1 year ago when we were at the 59th anniversary of JFK's assassination, and we said at the time that 2024 was going to be all about 1964 to end 1984. And so what we're going to find out this year is the JFK narrative entering a discussion about politics with KYC and AML exactly onto it. So it's being set up perfectly for us to understand what's going on, right? Oh, and did you know this? I didn't know that. This is another weird simulation link. Did you know who died on the same day as Kennedy? Did you know this? On the exact same day, a few hours later, it was Aldis Huxley, Brave New World. I didn't know that. He died the same day. So imagine, strangely, 1984 and Brave New World have this kind of relationship with each other, right? Which future do we live in? I've continued to say it looks The thing is, it truthfully looks more like Ayn Rand's version with Atlas Shrugged, because we're really just dealing with it's not so much the brainwashing or the boot on your neck. It's the incompetency that's promoted and cultivated amongst the population. Just the absolute dredge morons that are allowed to perpetuate this stuff. So that's kind of what Ayn Rand said, right? Versus what these other two said. But nevertheless, it's pretty good. He died just a few hours after Kennedy, so no one really paid attention, right? Too much else going on. But here you go, right? So now that we have this, powerful narrative that's entering all kinds of other sub-narratives into this third act. Yeah, much better. So we have all these narratives now entering their third act. My own personal one, which is not compared to the Trump one, but they're all related. They're all aligning and turning into this one massive meta story. And the end of the story is here. We're at the end of the story, right? So, and what does it look like? Well, amazingly, on the same moment that we're observing the 60th anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy, and we're understanding where a KYC and ML come from, right? So I've been arguing since 10 years now that eventually KYC and ML are dead, right? And now for many years programming events, you're sort of, you put situations into the middle ground. Well, how do we comply for now, right? Well, the good news is we don't even have to think about it anymore, right? Like, we can't go backwards. We can't go to a middle ground. It's all or nothing now, right? Either we win or we don't. But at least we're here and we're participating and we're up against it. And I think we're going to win. Now, how do I think we're going to win? Well, here's what Balaji says, right? So he says the following, right? The digital iron curtain, right? I don't think enough people see this for what it is. A digital iron curtain is gradually descending over the West. It's the Fed now and their quasi-CBDC. It's the 87,000 IRS agents. It's stepped up financial service. It's a tax on every exchange. It's expanded civil forfeiture. All of this is against the backdrop of sovereign debt crisis, commercial real estate collapse, and a historical crash in bond prices. Basically, the US is bankrupt many times over. Western central banks themselves need bailouts, and DC is making it even harder to exit to crypto. So if you're caught on the blue side when the music stops, there's a scenario where everything you own will be seized to pay the state's unpayable debts. Just like the countless examples of financial repression and communist wealth seizure that happened in the 20th century, which Ray Dalio, among others, has tabulated. Yeah, I know, many don't think it can happen. Despite massive fires burning down freeways, mobs surrounding cars, open-air drug dealing, soaring prices and feces, rampant looting and criminality, somehow it doesn't register with them that they still think it's the 1950s or something. They're caught in the illusion of Barbie rather than the reality of BLM. They haven't thought through how nasty these mobs will get when the money runs out. They don't know what the early Soviet era was like, the combination of anarchy and tyranny, of total lawlessness and lawless seizure. For everyone else who has some inkling of what may come, they'll need to choose which side of the digital iron curtain they land on. Red states are probably better than blue, and foreign states are probably safer than red. A good rule of thumb is to be as far away financially, physically, and socially from bankrupt blue America as possible. Because if 2008 was about bank bailouts, soon we're going to see central bank bailouts, reverse bailouts where the currency is debased to bail out the government. QE wasn't free, is what he says, right? So, we have this situation here where, indeed, as Balaji is predicting, it's only going to get worse. Now, it might only get worse, right? But think about it like this, right? It's 60 years. We're not getting any of the documents on JFK again, yet now we all understand what happened. I think a year ago, you couldn't just openly say, well, yeah, the United States government killed him. Now you can just say it, right? Now it's clear to everyone. You don't even have to make the argument. You don't have to say, oh, you didn't hear about this, right? We're there. So we've got, a lot of people picking up on that today. Dylan Ullman writing 60 years ago today, President of the United States was murdered in broad daylight. 60 years later, the Biden administration has chosen to keep the remaining JFK documents related to the assassination under wraps indefinitely. What are they hiding? What national security risk could possibly be? What could possibly be there, right? So now take this into account, right? The brainwashing, everything that's been built since 1964 to create a 1984 situation in America. all comes to bear when you look at, take, for example, New York State, right? So what happened yesterday in New York State? Unbelievably, right? Unbelievably. It's 60 years since we've had this KYC AML situation, right? And it doesn't look like it's enough. The state of New York yesterday announced that two things, right? They're going to have a Ministry of Truth, right? So they're going to try and teach people about media literacy, right? What do you think they're going to teach them, right? So they're teaching them about media literacy. It's all scammy lessons, trust the experts, right? So you get that, but they've also voted for the right to be able to quarantine and isolate people for any reason whatsoever, right? So this is what Wall Street Silver says. The New York Appellate Division has ruled in favor of Governor Kathy Hochul in a landmark case of government overreach. Isolation and quarantine procedures, right? So this is what Wall Street Journal says is coming. They can now take you away for mandatory quarantine and isolation for any virus at their sole discretion. No court date, no option to fight it, no age limit, and no time limit for your quarantine. And they can use experimental treatment on you. Can't wait for this to go to the U.S. Supreme Court, right? So indeed, it probably will go to the Supreme Court. But nevertheless, we're in a situation where we probably haven't had honest elections since, Nixon, maybe, I don't know. But before even, right, it looks like what was going on with LBJ became institutionalized across the country. He took his little Texas cheating systems and it looks like it went everywhere, right? Not only that, it infiltrated the financial system, it infiltrated media, it infiltrated all of this stuff. And it's all now coming to a head in a sense that we're entering one way or the other, the end of this storyline, one way or the other, right? There's no way around it. Now, the good news is we've got this business model, let's say, of media literacy and the scam of media literacy, right? Being openly divulged by people like Kathy Hochul and others. So that's the good news. They aren't even hiding their short-term goals here. They're sort of openly advocating for what they want. But again, the situation in the United States is that the federal government that did this stuff, right, that grew out of World War II, that entrenched itself during Kennedy's administration, is now being challenged by both the private sector with Elon Musk and the Media Matters thing, with Donald Trump suing all of these media companies, right? So all of these guys are going to get put on the back foot. And then you've also got the Texas situation where Ken Paxton, who was impeached by the cowboy CIA wing of Texas that the Bushes created. So George Prescott Bush, Jeb Bush's son, tried to get this guy impeached. Now, it didn't work. So it's one of those situations like with Trump. If you come for the king, you best do it, right? And it didn't work out. So not only is Ken Paxton going after all of these folks in... Not only is Ken Paxton going after all of these folks in Media Matters thing, right? So he's supporting the Media Matters thing. He's also going after Pfizer simultaneously. So Mike Brenn says, Lord protect Ken Paxton, because the man is going after both Media Matters and Pfizer. He's not going to need to wait for the entire Yankee Cowboy Alliance to come after him. He's already coming after them. So unbelievably, Texas, in its true role in America, is rising to the occasion as a sovereign state within America and fighting for its future protection. The very place where Kennedy was assassinated due to corruption 60 years ago today. So unbelievably, all of these stories are working their way through. Now, again, it's the third act, right? So agreed, there's only so many ways we can go from here, right? Trump could be assassinated like Kennedy, right? He could end, right? Musk, they could do something to him, right? Balaji, I don't know if he's going to make it, right? But at the same time, you've got someone like myself, right, who's coming out with, I think, the greatest orange pilling book ever written. I think I've written the orange pill book of all time. and you're going to get it today. And we have the means now to argue against this media literacy thing that Katie Hochul is trying to institutionalize, right? We're the only ones who are media literate here because we understand how persuasion works. We understand how brainwashing works, how hypnotism works. That's what my whole book is about. It's a very fun way to understand it all, right? So you've got this situation where the third act is seemingly linked in all of these narratives, right? Bitcoin is now directly linked to the presidency, directly linked through the financial surveillance that happened as a result of the previous assassination of a president. So we're setting up for an amazing 2024. And what I said is there's no way around it. 2024 is the main battle for Bitcoin. It's the main battle for America. It's the main conflict in starting anyway, this process of separating money and state. And it'll take a little while after we win 2024, but we're going to win. There's no way we're going down. There's no way. Look at it like this. Despite everything that happened to me, right? I got all Fed Reserve and Janet Yellen and Letitia. I'm not afraid of these people. They're not going to beat me. Who would you take, honestly? Now, I understand we all get together, right, every morning. But who do you think is going to win a fight? Who? For real, I'm not kidding, right? I understand the brave, the Fed Reserve, right? Janet Yellen, the Treasury, right? She's one of the least persuasive people I've ever seen in my life. Now, she can be a tough broad for sure, right? But the plebs and the Bitcoiners and what we're doing and what we understand and who else is on our team and the ability we have to attract more talent, the level of IQ we have compared to them, right? We are in a true conquistador versus cannibal fight here, right? The weapons of World War III are media literacy, they are financial literacy, and they are energy literacy. And we have them. They don't. They have anger, a little bit of control, but less, right? They can't get Trump. They can't get Trump. And how amazing is it, right, that Bitcoiners now are not able to be in a wishy-washy middle ground anymore, like, Trump is if he would just have nicer tweets, right? I'm into financials, I'm into new stuff, all these people that weren't around for Trump last time. Because as a Bitcoiner and a Trump supporter in 2020, I got to tell you, it was a little lonely, right? There were some, but you still couldn't really be like, I love Donald Trump, right? Now, I still don't forgive him for his last day in office. I still support Vivek for president over him, I would say, right? But that's magic thinking. We're in a 3-act situation here. And if he wins, there's nothing I would think is funnier, nothing I would enjoy more. He just better pardon Assange and Ed and Ross this time, right? Because I still have a problem with that. But that doesn't matter in the sense that all of these narratives are coming together. I believe all of these people will be out of jail soon. Is New Hampshire red enough? Oh, yeah. Well, so is Vermont. I mean, we don't have where I am in Vermont, we don't have any prosecutors from what's his shit. There's no Soros prosecutors. And people don't forget that we have like the best gun laws in Vermont going, right? So we're good. And I'd say New Hampshire is fine too. Like, who's going to come and get you there? So you can hide. So I don't think it's a problem. I don't think any of this is going to be a problem, guys. I think we're just going to win. I think 2024, given our talent stack, given our capacity, given the team that we've assembled, right? Like, who would you take in a fight? Look at those dumb shits up there yesterday accusing Kraken of this. Stupid Janet Yellen and dumb Merrick Garland, right? These people are weak. They're not strong. They can't move the needle. They can't persuade people. They can't go on a podcast. They can't go talk to people. They can't do any of those things, right? Are we going to see Alex Soros speak publicly? Of course not. They're going to continue to hide him, and then they're never going to be able to make arguments and get people on their side. All they can do is brainwash and deliver dopamine and outrage to the low IQ people or the middling IQ people, right? It's not going to be enough. It's just not going to be enough. And I continue to believe that the financial piece here is really important because we got about a year now to go before things really start to heat up with Bitcoin. But remember, Bitcoiners, the price didn't get affected yesterday, right? Like, really, we're going to ignore this. We're going to get over it. And we're going to be in a position in 2024 already to start leveraging Bitcoin to separate money and state, because the timeline here is done. The timeline of corruption in government and using government in this way, which goes back to 60 years now, right, is going to finish. That story is over. We're in the third act. The only way we get out of this third act is if the real gulags begin, and future is a completely forked off different version of that than I see now. But I don't think we're going to go there. I think we're going to win. All right. Isn't it amazing that we don't see the corrupt class going after Wall Street? Yeah, no kidding, huh? Late to the party. Sounds like a good rip. Yeah, it was pretty good, Daniel. All 60 years of JFK. So since JFK. So it's been the theme. All right. So I got to do a bit of a short one today because my wife has to go meet a friend, unfortunately, whose parent passed away 2 days ago. So it's a little bit of a consolation thing. These things happen, right? So I've got to go watch the kids. But thank you for coming today, guys. I appreciate it. Let me know if I missed any stories. I know I haven't spoken much about this OpenAI thing. It's kind of boring, right? I don't know. A lot of people are into it. Where do we get the book? I'll send a link out on my Twitter today to the website, but it will be on my website. There'll be a link on the website where you can download it. I'll see if I can find other ways to share it, but I'm going to be out sharing it. So I'm probably going to make an audio version on YouTube too in the next couple of days. So if you can't read it today, there will be a voice-over audio version coming up with my own voice, so I don't have to rely on the AI voice thing again, which tripped me up putting out some of the Satoshi Wedding Murders audio book things that I did. So there you go. I should be around tomorrow to do a short one too, if there's news. We might just do a Thanksgiving coffee together, though. We might keep the content light tomorrow because I anticipate not much going on. There's thankfully a little lessening of hostilities for a moment in Israel. So looks like we might have a boring day. We'll see. Lots going on anyway, though. We can regurgitate some of this stuff because there's lots to talk about. So maybe we'll do a very basic version tomorrow, a little shorter, with just a chat and a coffee. All right, team. See you tomorrow. Thanks for everything. Thanks for coming. We appreciate it.